After a while of doing self-paced learning, I realized that I had students who were doing mastery projects and beyond the course opportunities, and they were getting this really wonderful, enriching experience. And these were students who basically finished my course content before other students. And after a few years of doing that system, I started thinking, like, well, wouldn't it be nice if all of my students had that opportunity to sort of pick what they want to learn, to go deeper into what we were learning about. And so that got me into thinking about a new system to leverage asynchronous or self-paced learning to give all my students the opportunity to engage in this passion-based learning. And where I started with was looking at my learning targets, and I wrote them all down, drew this map. Here are all the learning targets for each unit. And then I would draw arrows in between learning targets that depended on others. So for example, there was some learning targets in the evolution unit that students needed to know about molecular genetics in order to really understand it, or needed to understand about inheritance and really to really understand it. And so I draw an arrow from the later evolution unit learning target to the earlier sort of molecular genetics or inheritance learning target. And as I drew these arrows, I started realizing, wow, there were just a handful of learning targets that all the other learning targets built on. And that made me think of, okay, maybe these are the learning targets that I'm going to think about as being mandatory, that all students need to learn. And then I started seeing these clusters, and that made me realize that, well, in my self-paced learning, what I could do is pause, maybe after a unit, pause, and then give students a choice. Do you want to learn about this topic, or that topic? What ended up happening is I end up developing what I call minors and majors. So in the fall, for example, after we did the inheritance and the molecular genetics unit, there were topics that built on those units, like genetic modification or cancer and cloning. But I didn't need all my students to know about all three of those topics. So some students could pick, and I called this shorter unit, mini unit in the fall, called it a minor. And that would be a short, maybe a week or a cycle. And then they move on to the evolution unit, go through some more mandatory aspects of evolution. And then when we got into the spring, in fact, while they were doing their science fair projects, they picked a major, and that was the entire fourth quarter, where these majors will build on what they've learned in the previous units. So there was an advanced evolution unit, an advanced inheritance unit, and there was a mixture where I did an advanced evolutionary genetics unit. I found great success. This allowed all my students, whether they were the high achieving or struggled, or they went faster than others or slower than others, this allowed all students to have an opportunity to pick something they wanted to learn about.